Late comeback can't undo the early damage as the Canucks fall 5-4 in Pittsburgh. The road win streak is over. Rink Wide Vancouver is just getting started. And we welcome you inside the Rink Wide Vancouver studios in downtown Vancouver. Jeff Patterson along with Irfan Ghaffar, back-to-backs for the Vancouver Canucks and back to the drawing board in some capacity. They got away with one in Boston on the back of Kevin Lankinen's stellar individual performance in goal. Goaltending, really one of the hot-button talking issues and talking points that we're going to get to here on Rink Wide Vancouver, a presentation of Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use the code NATION when opening an account. The Pittsburgh Penguins jump out to a big lead on the Vancouver Canucks and then hold on. The Canucks push to the end, and we'll give them credit for that. But it was always going to be tough for second back-to-backs of the season. It's life in the National Hockey League. They're going to have a bunch more before this season is through, and hopefully they're prepared for those a little better than they were for this one, because they fell behind 1-0 relatively early, chipped away and tied the game at 1, and then the floodgates opened. It was 4-1 after one period of play and 5-1 early in the second period. And at that point, you thought this game might get away from the Vancouver Canucks. And that's why I say credit to them for at least chipping away. But I don't care if it's the Penguins or one of the best teams in the National Hockey League. You dig yourself a 4-goal deficit. It is going to be tough to climb all the way back. And in the end, the Canucks came close, but not close enough.
Yeah, lots to get into. The social channels, ours on YouTube and obviously on X, are flooding with people wanting to talk about the big elephant in the room, and it was the goaltending, and obviously we'll get into that. But yeah, Jeff, I mean, the second of back-to-backs, I think you and I discussed this last night a little bit, could be one of those trap games, right? Even though it is the Pittsburgh Penguins and things like that, the second of back-to-backs, you've got a lot of games in front of you. The Canucks didn't get off to a good start. You mentioned them tying the game at 1, but then it was all downhill from there. Chipping away, yes, it was nice to see them come back, but even then, in the end, it just wasn't enough from a group. They outshot them, they outhit them, but in the end, the Penguins outscored them, win the game.
Final shots were 27-23. Canucks outshoot the Penguins 11-5 in the third period. Canucks end up scoring 3 unanswered goals in this hockey game. Again, it was 5-1 at one point. It looked like it was curtains then, and then Pius Suter scores. Quinn Hughes with a beautiful individual effort. Elias Pettersson late, and there was still time on the clock. And these are the Pittsburgh Penguins. Like, they have been the most permissive team in the National Hockey League, so no lead is safe. On this night, though, they were able to see it through, get it across the finish line. And so for the Penguins, just their second win in 8 games, just their 5th win in the last 19 hockey games. And Irf, this is why it's disappointing, I think, from a Canucks standpoint. Again, you're not going to win them all. And they had won 8 in a row on the road. So history was there. If they had found a way to win this hockey game, they would have matched the franchise record. That opportunity goes by the wayside. I don't think anybody in that locker room is going to be too concerned about the franchise record part of it.
Nope.
But this was a game that was there for the taking. Not so much when it was 5-1, but look, the Penguins were fragile, but they got absolutely steamrolled by Utah the other night, 6-1 in their last game. So maybe you expected a bit of a bounce back. I guess the troubling part for me was the Penguins hadn't scored more than 4 goals in a game, or I guess they did it once since mid-October. They scored 4 in the first period. And I'm not trying to talk around, as you said, the elephant in the room. I want to get to Artur Silovs and spend a lot of time talking about him, and I can already see that a lot of people are talking about him in the chat. But it does go hand in hand. And we've said this on a number of occasions through the first 21 games of the season. You know, even Thatcher Demko at the top of his game, I think he's going to find, and he's not likely to be at the top of his game right away whenever he gets back here, but the performance in front of the goaltending, particularly the defense groups. And yeah, we spent a lot of time talking about Myers and Soucy. Those names will probably pop up. Noah Juleson certainly gets thrown into the mix, but you know, even on a night where Quinn Hughes has 3 points and does Quinn Hughes things, I thought there were a couple of questionable defensive plays from the captain as well. But the goaltender is the last line of defense, and it's happening far too often. In his few appearances in the National Hockey League this season, gave up 6 on opening night, gave up 6 against the New Jersey Devils. Here gives up 5 against a Pittsburgh team that hadn't been scoring. And it starts with the first goal, the Blake Lizotte goal. Bounce off the end boards. A fortunate bounce for the Penguins as we watch the replay. But Artur Silovs loses the net on his right. Like, he's got his left skate is in the blue paint. The rest of his body is to the right of the right post. And that puck comes off the end boards in a hurry. Like, that's a long way to travel for any goaltender. And he couldn't get across there. And Blake Lizotte on the back end, able to pot his third goal of the season, 3:57 in. And so Canucks coming off the shutout in Boston. Yeah, they weren't great against the Bruins, but they got great goaltending. They weren't great in this game, and they didn't get great goaltending. And as a result, they end up losing 5-4. But I kind of thought the tone was set early on that one. It has been an issue for Artur Silovs, just losing his net too often at this level.
Yeah, look, I'm going to kind of take this one all the way back, like into last season with Artur Silovs. You know, what we saw in the playoffs was incredible. That short run, getting the Vancouver Canucks one win away from the conference final. Things kind of went sideways for him in the summer a little bit. A lot went on in his life, and I think a lot went on with the Vancouver Canucks and organizationally. That being said, Artur Silovs lost his starting job last season with Marcus Tranius at the helm of the goaltending coach in Abbotsford.
Yep.
Like, Ian Clark makes goalies look good and is the goalie whisperer and a goalie guru. So there's something going on here because Kevin Lankinen's playing pretty well, right? And Artur Silovs is somehow lost his confidence a little bit. He looks like you mentioned, losing his net far too often. The shots from a long distance are still a thing with Artur Silovs. I mean, I hope he gets it back, but right now, the best place for him to be, in my honest opinion, is in the American Hockey League working on his game. And I know the Canucks aren't going to have that luxury just yet because Thatcher Demko isn't ready. I put on X before when it was getting out of hand. This result by no means should the Canucks rush Thatcher Demko back. He's going to play when he's going to play and when he's ready. This is an early game in November, but there are some signs here and some signs that we've seen, Jeff, far too often this season already that shows that Silovs needs to just go and get his game and learn his game and figure out his game more in the American League.
So the Penguins open the scoring. It's 1-0, 8 minutes into the hockey game. Aatu Räty, big hit on the end boards on a forecheck, stays with it. Some good work by Max Sasson in his second NHL game. Sasson ends up getting an assist on Räty's second goal of the season, kind of a double clutch in the slot. Second time makes good, and he snaps it past Tristan Jarry. And so you're thinking to yourself, okay, back-to-back nights, you give up the first one, but you've found a way to get back on the beam here. It's 1-1 midway through the first period. You're in pretty good shape. And that's really the last time that I think we'd say that about the Vancouver Canucks on the night. But let's just spend a quick second on Räty and Sasson. Look, like, we've been talking a lot about guys that, aren't getting it done for the Vancouver Canucks, whether it's Nils Hoglander, whether it's Archdeep Bains when he's in the lineup, and he was the healthy scratch tonight to make room for Max Sasson. This is a good news story. Max Sasson's waited to make his NHL debut. Saw dad and the family, all the high fives and fist pumping the other night in Ottawa. He's a healthy scratch in Boston. Rick Tocchet told him to stay ready because there was a pretty good chance he was going to play in Pittsburgh. And 2 games, 2 points. And I saw on the television graphic, he's the first Canuck since Elias Pettersson burst out of the scene and had points in his first 5 NHL games. So Max Sasson keeping pretty good company in a short sample size there. But I don't care whether you're getting 6 minutes of ice time, 16, whatever. Make the most of it. I would suggest that Max Sasson is doing just that.
And Räty as well. I think they both are. I mean, good for Max. And you saw the two that they were smiling on the bench after that goal and, things like that. But it's making the most of your opportunity in that. He plays hard, right? And I think for him, it's more simple, the simplifying his game. He's listening to what his coaches tell him. He's watching the film properly, and he's going and doing exactly what is being asked of him. And that's the thing when you're going to play limited minutes, especially in the National Hockey League, is you don't try and do too much. And you take care of your own zone, first of all, that's going to lead to more minutes and more responsibility. And you see with Räty, he's getting the trust of his head coach by taking late stages faceoffs in hockey games and being out there and being dependent on. But Sasson's, going out and just doing what, the coaches are telling him.
9 minutes and 56 seconds of ice time for Max Sasson. 1 shot on goal, the assist, and is on the ice for that goal and none against on the night when the Canucks give up 5. So that's a bit of a feather in his cap. Bit of more of a mixed bag for Räty because he took an early penalty that the Penguins scored on. He took a late penalty on Sidney Crosby. He scores the goal. He plays 11 minutes and 6 seconds. And tough night in the faceoff circle, as it was last night in Boston as well. And that's going to happen for him. but that's sort of one of the things that gives him a leg up for a spot in the lineup. If he's not winning faceoffs, and you got Sasson, they might want to take a look at Max Sasson as a center. I mean, that's where he's played in Abbotsford. He's played on the wing here in the NHL, but if Ratu's not doing some of the things that they expect from him, the goal is great. You'll take fourth line goals anytime you can get them, but some of those other things, and I'm not suggesting that after scoring a goal, Ratu's coming out of the lineup, but I do wonder if at some point they want to take a look at Max Sasson as a center as opposed to him playing on the wing. But not a great night in the faceoff circle for Ratu. Ratu just 3 wins in 9 attempts. All right, let's get back to the remainder of the first period here, because this is when it really started to fall apart for the Vancouver Canucks. 3 Penguins goals in a 5-minute span. Ricard Raquel at the side of the net, able to get his stick on a puck and kind of chip it up past Artur Silovs to make it 2-1. It was Raquel's 8th of the year. Carson Soucy and Noah Juulsen kind of get crossed up. Soucy follows his man out high, and there's just no rotation on the part of the Canucks, and Juulsen gets caught in no man's land, and Raquel's wide open at the back door. But that Soucy-Juulsen combo, they were just kind of getting revved up because on the power play as well, somebody's got to make it a better play on Kevin Hayes than either one of them did.
Well, look, I think the knock on Soucy is he can't find his guys, gets lost. So again, it's boxing out guys, and that's basically happened very early this season, and it's continued to be a trend all the way through. It doesn't matter who he's played with. So I know that Rick Tocchet said that a lot of people have been tough on him. They want him to work and they want him to simplify his game. But when mistakes like this happen and they keep happening repeatedly, and you're on the wrong end of a plus-minus sheet almost every single night, something's got to give here. So whether it's defensive partner, whether it's sitting them, I don't think that they're ever going to do that, to be completely honest. But it cost them again.
Yeah, so at 2-1, again, you're chasing the game a little bit. Then Ratu takes the penalty for high sticking, and it is Kevin Hayes, his 4th of the year. Evgeny Malkin setting up, kind of drawing the defense to him, and eventually slides that puck to the inside. And whether it was one of the Canuck defenders or Artur Silovs, somebody had to do more than they did on that play, and Hayes was able to get his stick on the loose puck, snaps it home. That makes it 3-1, and before you could really catch your breath, off the rush, Sidney Crosby with all day. Like, how many times do we hear Rick talk about the guts of the ice surf? And there's Crosby through the neutral zone, untouched. Wrong guy, obviously, to allow easy entry into the zone. I don't know what Tyler Myers doing on the right side, but he turns to the outside. I think he thought the puck was going to go up the boards. It's the NHL. You got to have better anticipation, especially as a veteran guy. And so Myers basically takes himself out of the play, leaves Quinn Hughes sort of drifting in no man's land, and Sid able to dance into the Canucks zone, then slides the puck over to Rust off the rush, and he made no mistake. And at that point, it's 4-1, and it kind of felt like, look out, the bottom is going to fall right out for the Vancouver Canucks. They get out of the first period, not in great shape, but it's 4-1 at that point. At least they got to catch their breath a little bit after one period of play, but then the onslaught continued, and it was Rust. Of all the goals, and there were a bunch of them that I didn't love, but the one that I really didn't love was Rust's second of the night. The snapshot off the rush, again, an easy entry into the zone, and beats Silovs from distance. Like, that's a goal that he had to stop, especially at 4-1. Who knows if the Canucks are coming all the way back, but at 5-1, it certainly felt like curtains, and that one felt like, at the NHL level, that's a goal that shouldn't go in.
No, and that's what we go back to talking about, right? It's seeing the game. I know he hasn't played in a while, but you're still getting your practice time. You're still working on, your game. And to be fair, this is your start. You probably knew long before this game, you were going to start this game. So you're watching tape, whether it's the advanced scouting or whatever it is. Shields just didn't look ready. And the guys in front of him, yes, you can blame a lot. You can put the blame there as well. They left him out to dry, but at some point you're going to want your goaltender to make a save, and he wasn't able to do that.
All right, so it's 5-1 at that point, and then the Canucks sort of mount the comeback, middle of the second period. Pia Suter with a nice sort of snapshot off left wing. Dakota Joshua providing a screen in front of the net. That made it 5-2, and you thought, okay, consolation for Pia Suter. He surges back into the Canucks scoring lead. He breaks that massive log jam. He's the first guy to 7 on the season. Quinn Hughes gets his 5th of the year, maybe his prettiest, and he scored a couple of others that would rank pretty highly, but just slicing and dicing his way into the Pittsburgh zone. Nobody really wanted to confront him. So, hey, you roll out the welcome mat for a guy like Quinn Hughes, he's going to take it and gets himself into a position where he's able to fire one home, beats Tristan Jarry, and now at 5-3 early in the first minute of the third. And you're thinking, okay, these are the Penguins. Like, maybe this thing isn't over. Canucks hurt their own cause, a couple of penalties, Garland and Ratu. And they were both, I thought, pretty sketchy calls on a night when the Canucks only had one power play. Penguins end up with 4. But the Penguins didn't score on either of their power plays in the third period. Canucks had their one power play early, and it was Blake Lizotte that actually had the best scoring chance of anybody. He had the breakaway, got behind Petey and walked in. Shilov's got a piece of that one, so he didn't make a save. There was a save there, and that kept it at 5-3. And then Elias Pettersson on a rebound in front with just under 2 minutes to play, his 7th of the season from Garland and Hughes. That was it for the scoring. 5-4 is the final score. Let's get to the Rink Wide Vancouver 3 stars of this hockey game. Presentation of Gretabar YVR. The 3 stars in the building, Brian Rust, Quinn Hughes, and Erik Karlsson. We're going a little different here. Rust gets 2 goals, including the winner. He also had an assist, so a 3-point night for him. There were a handful of guys. Erik Karlsson had 3 secondary assists, so he did figure in the scoring. We considered him. But in the end, Quinn Hughes with a goal and 2 assists, so he had 3 points himself. Quinn is the 3rd star. And Sidney Crosby, 2 primary assists on the 4-1 and 5-1 goals. So, he has a say in it. This wasn't a signature night by any stretch, I didn't think, for Sidney Crosby. Had that chance on the power play in the third. Puck kind of skipped over his stick when he was planted off to the side of the net. But he was a factor. And when he's out there doing his thing, you have to pay attention. And great in the face-off circle. Won 17 draws on the night, 17 and 9. So he wins 65% of the face-offs. Nobody else in this game even close. The next highest guy on either team was 7 face-off wins. That was Teddy Bluger, and Sid goes 17 and 9. So a 2-assist night for him. That's enough to get 2nd star honors. So we'll go Brian Rust, Sidney Crosby, and Quinn Hughes are the 3 stars of this hockey game. A presentation of Gretabar YVR. Now, the Canucks are out on the road for basically another week here. If you're looking for a place to watch the games, then check out Greta. You got to experience all that Gretabar has to offer. Always talking about the big screens. There are so many of them. It means that there's not a bad seat in the house. If it's intermission or games are out of hand and you're looking for something else, you got arcade games there. You've got the street food, weekly drink specials as well. We hosted our first Canucks Army watch party there last month, and there's talk of another one in the works, so stay tuned for that. Gretabar, the place to be, 50 West Cordova. Gretabar, let the games begin. Now, I had a guy come at me in my mentions as this game unfolded, and he was freaking out that Rick Tocchet didn't get the hook out and get Artur Silovs out of this hockey game. And I went right back at him, and you kind of touched on it there. This was an Artur Silovs game start to finish. Like, I think if the Penguins scored 10, I'm not sure that the hook is coming out. Kevin Lankinen pitched a shutout in Boston. They've got an early start in Buffalo on Friday, another funky start time on the weekend. I think the grand plan is probably to split those games as well, although the organization may have something to consider now after Silovs' performance here. But again, barring an injury to Artur Silovs, or if I think he was going the distance, and I think he, as you said, he knew, like, there are nights in the life of a backup goaltender where part of your job is to give the other guy a break. And, Friday will be 3 games in 4 nights, not even 4 nights, because it's an early start, 3:00 local time, noon Pacific on Friday. But yeah, like, this guy he didn't want to hear any of it. I said, like, there are nights where I've thought maybe Rick Tocchet was going to get the hook out. As bad as it looked for a while there for Artur Silovs, I just didn't think he was going to get lifted. I think he understood the assignment, that this was his night, start to finish. Yeah, and like I said, he would have known about this start for a while, probably. It's written down on the calendar that said your second half of back-to-backs, and with Lankinen pitching the shutout and kind of doing what he did, this was the night where your backup goaltender gives the starter a break. And like you said, if there was 10 goals or if there was 8, I really do think that it would have been in there. Again, not going to put the entire game on Silovs, but a lot of it, yes, you're going to have to, because you're going to want your goaltender to make a save defensively. Defensively, some of the guys left him out to dry a little bit as well. But kind of brings me back to another point. You mentioned Rick Tocchet leaving him in there. I want to ask you about Rick Tocchet and calling a timeout, because we've had discussions on this show aplenty. When games get out of hand, Rick Tocchet kind of saves his timeouts and doesn't really use them. He used it late in the game,
but do you think that maybe early on he should have called one?
Yeah, I do. And I've thought that a number of times under Rick Tocchet's watch. Look, Rick Tocchet, coach of the year, I get it. It's his job, and he knows how to do it. I'm an armchair quarterback, but I've been around this game long enough to know that once the puck drops for an opening faceoff, like a coach really has very little at his disposal to send a message to his team, to sort of alter the course of a hockey game. He can limit ice time. He can bench guys. He could pull a goaltender. He can call a timeout. And there were a couple of ways to approach a timeout. Sometimes, you use the timeout strategically. You want to get a message through to your team about a certain aspect. There are times we see a coach will go up and down the bench and just let his team have it, right? And just try and snap them to attention. And as fiery a guy as Rick Tocchet was as a player and still is, they don't come a whole lot more passionate than Rick Tocchet. I am surprised that over his time as head coach of the Vancouver Canucks, that he hasn't sort of gone down that ladder road that I was talking about, where game's getting away from his team, take the 30 seconds, even if it's putting on a show for the people in the building, you're getting your message across to your players that what's happening here isn't acceptable. Something's got to give. And it's very clear that he likes to hold on to his timeouts for later in the game. Now, here they call the timeout and they end up scoring. So it's impossible to say that there wasn't some value in holding on to the timeout. Unfortunately, they end up losing the hockey game. So really, how much value was there? Now, I have talked about this a couple of times. I'm not there in Pittsburgh, obviously, so I can't talk to him and ask him on this one. But he has said that there are enough stoppages with the 3 TV timeouts in each period that he thinks that if he needs to get a message through to his team, that there are these baked in stoppages that allow him to do that without spending his timeout. And I guess I understand that to a degree, but I still think over 82 games that there have to be a couple of nights where what you're seeing just isn't acceptable. And I think you got to call your players on it. So yeah, I'm a little bit surprised.
I also think because your backup goalie's in there too. Right? You maybe just let it breathe. The fans are going to be on you anyways. They're going to be all over you. But
sure,
maybe just let them skate to the bench, take a breath, have a little chat with Kevin Lankinen, tap on the butt, whatever it is. It's going to be okay, and kind of maybe just shake it off a little bit. But obviously it didn't happen, and that's kind of where we're at talking after this one. Again, a lot of people in our socials, and Jeff, you can imagine this is exactly where you think it would be going. A lot of it is on Artur Shilov's. Defensively, the defensive woes of the Vancouver Canucks. A lot of people talking about other players, forward group, what's going on there. Dakota Joshua kind of being invisible. I know you and I have talked about it a little bit as well, but you see who the low ice time guy was again for the Vancouver Canucks?
Hoglander.
Yep.
Yeah. What was his final number here?
9:18, I think.
9:14.
Or 9:14,
so,
yes.
A minute and a half more than he played in Boston. Of course, in Boston, didn't play much in the third period. They were clinging to the 1-0 lead and ultimately win that game 2-0 here. I kind of thought maybe Rick Tocchet would just roll his lines in the third period, and then it got a little bit tighter, and I guess there was some belief there that they could come all the way back. I thought, quite frankly, when they were down 5-1, I thought to myself, all right, this Pettersson-Sherwood-DeBrusk line that had a little magic late in the homestand and then in Ottawa to kick off the road trip had done nothing individually or collectively in this hockey game. I thought, why wouldn't you use that as the opportunity to get Brock Besser some time with Elias Pettersson and just throw some different looks? And again, Rick Tocchet kind of stuck to what he had been doing, tried to get a few extra shifts in there for Besser. And of course, when you're down and you need a goal, Besser is, that's certainly one of the things that he brings to the mix. Although I will say 2 games back from a head injury.
Looks a little slow.
It has been a pretty quiet return to the lineup for Brock Besser. 2 shots on goal, 4 attempts overall, but no points in this hockey game and no points last night, obviously. So still trying to regain that scoring touch, and he had it. He had 6 goals through his first 12 games before the knock from Tanner Jeannot. So he's got to be better. Again, they weren't going to win every road game that they played, and Brock Besser's not alone here. On a night where Elias Pettersson finishes with a goal and an assist, I thought a remarkably quiet night for PD, all things considered. Now, the final stat line looks all right, but in the absence of JT Miller, Elias Pettersson is their number one center, and that comes with some responsibility. And you go back to January, the last time they were in Pittsburgh, he had 2 goals, 2 assists, 5 shots on goal, the overtime game winner. Like, that's how you leave your fingerprints all over a hockey game, and that's not what happened here. And yes, he does figure in the scoring, but still a pretty quiet night for Pettersson. Didn't have a shot on goal through 2 periods of play, ends up with 2 on the night, but not a great night in the faceoff circle either. 6 wins of the 16 draws that he took. So, I mean, there's enough to go around on a night when they lose 5-4, but still waiting for Elias Pettersson to really take command of a hockey game. And I don't think you could say that he did it, even though he had 2 points in this one.
It's just crazy that, you look at it and how much removing one player from this team does to the entire lineup. And that's JT Miller, obviously. Because that second line, like Heinen, Bluger, Besser, it's not a great line. Like, in all honesty, Jeff, like, you'd think that there would be some movement. You maybe put Sherwood down there and move Besser up to try and get some more offense, or at least DeBrus down and Heinen up, and just to shake things up a little bit. But yeah, like, JT Miller really solidifies this entire forward group when he is in the lineup. But again, I'm going to go back to, Niels Hoglander a little bit. It's the guy that I mentioned, low ice time guy. Like, it's about time that he probably gets sat. Like, he's sitting enough during the game. What's the point of, you know what I mean? Like, he's not playing in the fourth. Like you mentioned, Rick Tocchet's not rolling his four lines. He's not playing much at all in the third period of hockey games. Guy's getting 9:18 of ice time. He's not doing really anything with it. Like, what is he doing there? I know he makes a lot of money, or he's going to be making a lot of money, but at least Archie Bains, you're noticing him a little bit. It's going to be between one of those two guys, and Sasson shouldn't come out of the lineup now. Like, he's playing enough to earn another game on Friday afternoon.
Yeah, I would keep Max Sasson in there. And then, of course, I'm sure he would love to get a chance to play in Detroit.
Yes,
a Michigan guy on Sunday. So we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit here. But no, I mean, 2 games for Max Sasson. He's looked pretty good. There is some real concern about Hoglander. And whether it's a confidence thing for him, he's got to play through this. Now, people are saying, well, he's only getting 7, 8, 9 minutes a night. Yeah, I get that. But he wasn't getting a whole lot more last year, and he scored 24 goals. Now, he worked his way to a promotion where he played with Pettersson in the second half of the season, but early on, he was definitely a third and a fourth line guy and was still finding ways to contribute. Here he has 2 goals on the season through 21 games, and has gone 16 games now without scoring a goal. And like, we seem to bring that up every night, and that's fine. But the process is, if you're going to score goals, you got to do the things that lead to goals. He didn't have a shot on goal in this hockey game. He doesn't look dangerous right now. I don't notice him in on the forecheck an awful lot. Now, he did draw the only power play that the Canucks had in this hockey game, so I'll give him credit for that. But when he's on, like, we just rave about this buzzsaw that, dog on a bone won't take no for an answer. And I don't care if it's 7 minutes of ice time. Like, if you're getting 7 or 8 shifts in a hockey game, do something. Like, it's too easy to hear people say, oh, he's lost his confidence. No, this is pro sports. This is the NHL. Like, figure it out. Figure out what was working for you a year ago and get back to that, because he just looks like a shell of himself right now. And I'm kind of with you. Like, even if it's just for a reset, like, not even so much punishment, but just like, Hoagie, it's not happening, man. What difference does it make right now if you're in the lineup or we sit you down for a game? Again, it's kind of got to that.
And there were points in this season where he was playing well. Like, his training camp wasn't bad.
His training camp was great.
He earned a spot on the top line.
Tocchet had legit praise for the guy for the way that he came to camp. I talked to him in Penticton, said he had never felt better coming to a training camp. And it just kind of feels like it has all gone out the window here for him. And he wasn't alone on a night like tonight. There were a lot of guys. It didn't go their way in this hockey game. So, I don't want to feel like we're singling him out, but to sit there and suggest that this isn't some kind of story now, a 24 goal scorer that just doesn't look dangerous, barely has the puck on his stick, isn't doing the things that have made him successful and gotten to this level. And you do wonder, like, where is it going to go next? Especially whenever JT Miller gets back, like, there are going to be some difficult decisions for this coaching staff to make. And now you've got guys pushing from below that want spots and I think have earned the opportunities here. So, yeah, I mean, that's going to be a storyline to continue to watch here for Niels Hoglander, but the drought is definitely up to 16 now without a goal since the Canucks were in Philadelphia on the 19th of October. Want to get to the stat that stands out. It's going to take us back to goaltending here, but just a slightly different way to look at Artur Silovs and the issues here. He's allowed 4 or more goals in 4 of his 6 starts. Like, you're not having success, obviously, in the NHL if that many pucks are getting past you. 6 against Calgary, 6 against New Jersey, and now this one is 5, and then there was a 4-goal game in there as well. It's too many. I mean, that is definitely a stat that stands out. And I'm with you that, they already sent him down to Abbotsford once to get some game action and get a little confidence. I do think whenever it is, and whether it's this weekend, whether it's when they come back off the trip, we all believe that Thatcher Demko's that close. Whenever he's activated, I do think that it's going to be Silovs that gets sent back to the farm, and hopefully he can play a fair bit down there and get some opportunities and get his confidence, not writing him off as an NHL goaltender. He's still only 23 years of age, but whether you go back to the summer and whatever knee issue it was that kept him out of that Olympic qualifying tournament, and then a bit of a sluggish start through training camp and preseason and opening night against the Flames, kind of spinning his wheels here, but just not giving the Canucks NHL goaltending. So 4 of 6 starts, giving up 4 or more. Absolutely a stat that stands out. And the stat that stands out, a presentation of White Spot. And at White Spot, they're all about enjoying great, comforting food and spending quality time with loved ones. With the new comfort menu, White Spot's focusing on cozy, satisfying flavors that are perfect to enjoy with family. Now, available and developed by the White Spot culinary team, the comfort menu is filled with warm, indulgent dishes designed to make you feel right at home. The new menu features mouth-watering additions like mini Yorkies, the braised beef burger, homestyle pot pie, or pot roast, rather. I'm getting ahead of myself here. I can see it in the script. The iconic chicken pot pie. Bring your family to White Spot for a delicious meal, perfect for the season. Visit your local White Spot today. All right, you mentioned him briefly in passing. I am kind of curious where you stand with Dakota Joshua. 7 games now back in the lineup. We know the ordeal that he was through with testicular cancer. I don't think anybody is carving Dakota Joshua at this stage, but I do think it's safe to say that it has been a slower return to any sort of impact than I'm sure he hoped for and maybe even thought. I mean, this isn't 2 or 3 games now. This is 7. So he's bumping up against 10 games back in the lineup. Has 1 assist, doesn't have a goal, didn't have a shot attempt in this hockey game. Was physical last night in Boston. That was great. That looked like maybe a step forward, but just doesn't look like the intimidating presence, obviously, that he was for so much of last season. Yeah,
and I think he's going to be the first to admit it. He probably won't like the way that it started for him either. I mean, he had 18 goals last season, and there's a lot of people that were clamoring, pay him all the money. He's got to get all the money. He's got the money now. And obviously we all know what he went through this summer and the recovery and things like that. But he's in the lineup. And you've mentioned he's in the lineup. He's available. People in our social channels are not carving Dakota Joshua, but a little quieter.
Yep.
We're not really noticing him. And if you're not noticing him for scoring goals, he was in front of the net on that goal that went in. If it hit him, it didn't. That's besides the point. But what's he averaging? 4.29 hits per game this season. I mean, if he's going to go around and just hit guys, I don't really know if that's the most effective part of his game. You need him to be the big, fast, physical guy, get to the net. He can shoot the puck well. He's got great hands for a forward, but we're not seeing any of that, Jeff. And I think that's the issue that a lot of people have with this. And I know it's only 7 games that he's played this season. Maybe let's decide around Christmas when it's been to about 15 games, or maybe right around the trade deadline or at the 4 Nations break, and let's see where Dakota Joshua really is. But like I said, he's in the lineup, so you're going to want him to actually go out and be able to produce. And I think that's where the frustration is a little bit with Dakota Joshua.
Now, he did log 2 minutes of shorthanded ice time, so that's a positive because this is
killing penalties. Yep.
Yeah, this is starting to ramp him up. He's up over 14 minutes of ice time. Again, when he's on, he can be a handful. He can be an impact player. We haven't seen that yet. It is only 7 games, but you hope that it's coming sooner rather than later. Because there's more there, it's there. And again, this guy has been through an awful lot already. So that's why I want to be careful when I say, this isn't highly critical. It's just pointing out that, there's more there.
100%.
How quickly can he reach that? Because he was so much fun to watch in the playoffs last year. He's an emotional guy. He's fiery. Brings a lot of elements that this team can use, quite frankly. And so, it's been a little on the quiet side, but again, not alone in that regard. We talked about Besser, same sorts of things here. I'm going to give him a little bit of grace time, just 2 games back, coming off a serious head injury. But these are the guys. These are the guys that Rick Tocchet's looking to and leaning on, and they're going to need a little bit more from a bunch of those types of players.
Again, yeah, look, and we've said this from the very beginning of this show. This is a post-game show that we deal with the facts given in front of us from the game that was just played. So let's talk about that for a second. We can add on to it after. Dakota Joshua wasn't good in this hockey game. Brock Besser was not good in this hockey game. So I'm not ripping on guys or being hard and critical of guys for an entirety of what's going on. And they weren't good in this game, but you're seeing signs. And now these are trending signs in the wrong direction of where you want to see players get better. And I do believe that Dakota Joshua will find it and that he will come through, but it's something to watch. And that's definitely why we do this and why we pay attention to it.
Well, and I also think too that, look, this is back-to-back. This is the second time that the Canucks have played back-to-backs. They've lost both ends of the second end of the back-to-backs. They lost at home to Nashville after they'd beaten Chicago the night before, and now they lose here to Pittsburgh after beating Boston. Well, guess what? I think there's 7 more back-to-backs to go. That's life in the National Hockey League, and that is part of this test. When, again, this team wasn't great in Boston. You kind of hope that they didn't tire themselves out from defending as much as they did. Who knows what the reasons were, but another sluggish start. And we've seen that far too often from the Vancouver Canucks. This is the 5th time in 21 games that they have surrendered the first goal of the hockey game in the first 5 minutes. So, yeah, I mean, slow starts have been a thing for the Vancouver Canucks. They've been able to overcome them. And again, here tonight, fell behind 1-0. They didn't fall behind 2-0 because they evened the score at 1-1, and then things kind of went south for them from there. But, their next back-to-backs come in the middle of December. They're in Utah one night, first ever visit to Salt Lake City in the National Hockey League for the Vancouver Canucks. Well, guess where they are on the second night of back-to-back? Yeah, Vegas. They roll into Vegas. If they play like they did here, the Golden Knights will absolutely carve them to pieces. You have to be able to claw and pick up some points somehow, some way on the back half of back-to-back. You can't just roll into the next building and wave the white flag and roll over. And for 35 minutes tonight, it kind of looked like that was the approach for the Vancouver Canucks. One thing that we haven't touched on here, and we probably ought to, is that Quinn Hughes played a ton, 27 minutes and 35 seconds. We talked about the defensive issues of guys that aren't named Quinn Hughes. So that was part of it. And then I think Rick Tocchet sensed that, hey, maybe there was a comeback to be had here. So you lean on your captain. He ends up with a goal and 2 assists. We talked about him being one of the stars. He played 10 minutes and 1 second of the third period alone. So he was out there for more than half of the third period. But I want to talk about his defense partner, because on the final shift of the game, Filip Hronek crashes into the sideboards, got up slowly, looked like he was favoring his shoulder. Now we'll wait and see if there's any early reports after the hockey game, but this is a guy that, remember, played 4 games for the Canucks after the trade, and then they shut him down because he had a sore shoulder. So I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but Hronek plays a lot. We talked about how well he played on Saturday in Ottawa when Quinn Hughes got thrown out of that hockey game. This is a guy that they need. They can't afford an injury to a player like Filip Hronek at this stage of the proceedings. So again, we'll look for an update. We'll wait for any kind of sign that he's all right here moving forward. But you don't like to see a guy like Phil Hronek favoring his shoulder when he's got a history of shoulder issues. Yeah,
and the Canucks need him desperately, right? He may not be putting up the points and whatever he's been doing, but him and Quinn Hughes are near the top of really, really good defensive pairings in the National Hockey League. So you hope he's okay, and you hope it was just one of those, maybe a little bit of a stinger. If it hurt him a little bit, no update from Rick Tocchet. Obviously, he did speak to the media, so I don't see anyone really posting any updates there. So again, yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. And obviously an off day tomorrow, travel day tonight, and off day in Buffalo, and then get ready to go back at it on Friday afternoon.
We wondered this after the Boston game because the underlying numbers were not flattering for Pettersson and Sherwood and DeBrusk. Do you think the door is open to maybe move away from that trio as they get set to take on Buffalo on Friday?
Yeah, I definitely do think so. I think you got to try and get Brock involved a little bit more as well, whether that's Brock and Petey kind of going up there, moving Sherwood down, or whether it's a guy like Jake DeBrusk having to move down to that second line and Heinen up. And, they have versatile guys. They've got a plethora of wingers that they can use and put into different positions. So Elias Pettersson drives that line, play him with his buddy Brock Besser. And, you hope that they're able to go and do that. So I definitely do think the door is open. I think all avenues should be open, right? It's another game where you look at it on the calendar. That's a game where you can get. So take your opportunity. The Buffalo Sabres are a team where you should be able to go and win that hockey game, as are the Detroit Red Wings. And then, the Minnesota Wild are going to be a tough out as their last game of the road trip.
I want to talk about the Sabres and preview that game just a little bit here. That's coming up on Friday, which, of course, is Black Friday. We're at U.S. Thanksgiving now. Thanksgiving in the States, football day on Thursday, quiet night in the National Hockey League, and then a handful of games on Friday, including the Canucks and the Sabres. Black Friday's here, and that means it's time to score big on Nation Gear. And whether you're repping the freshest designs or rocking the classics, this is your chance to snag all your favorites for 15% off. And big news, the brand new My City collection has dropped, and it's part of this sale, along with other gear that you don't want to miss. This is your shot to grab the latest styles and the classics at unbeatable prices. If you need the perfect gift for your favorite fan, Nation Gear has got you covered, from hoodies to hats. Make this holiday season legendary for the hockey lover in your life. It gets better. Spend over $200 and we'll throw in free shipping as well, but don't wait on the sidelines for too long. This deal is 1 week only. Shop now only at nationgear.ca. All right, I mentioned that there is no National Hockey League action on Thursday, dark day in the NHL. Sit back and let the NFL do its thing with its handful of games. Now there's football on Friday too.
Yeah.
Not used to that, but hey, things evolve and change. But this is going to make you get a little creative here as we look to your line of the night. Where are you looking for Bet365?
Oh, I'm looking way down the road, Jeff. We are going way down the road. This portion here is brought to you by Bet365, proud partners to Kirsten Price, Canucks Conversation. Jeff, always you and I here at Rink Wide Vancouver. Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets. Use code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. So American Thanksgiving is one of the points of the season where you look at where teams are in the standings and you say, are you a pretender? Can you be a team that kind of can get over the hump? Or are you going to be in it when it's all said and done? So I went and looked at the NHL Pacific Division futures odds. The Vancouver Canucks at plus 350 to win the division. I thought that they were going to win the division before the season started. Plus 350, not bad value if you are going to get that your Demko back at some point. JT Miller is going to come back into the lineup, but the Edmonton Oilers and Vegas Golden Knights, again, two good teams really there. The LA Kings don't really kind of know what they're doing and what's going on with that LA Kings team, but everyone below that, not really good odds. So the Canucks are plus 350 to win division, not bad, but neither the other two as well.
So the Canucks are 11-7-3. They are sitting third in the Pacific Division, so they are above the playoff bar. They're in one of the three divisional slots right now with a goal differential of 0. They have scored 67 and given up 67. So, you look at Vegas leading the division 5 points in front of the Canucks, who have a game in hand of the Golden Knights, but Vegas with a plus 18 goal differential heading into their game in Colorado tonight. But really, when you look around the division, like Calgary's got a negative goal differential, Los Angeles, a goal differential plus 1. The Oilers have a negative goal differential. So Vegas is really the sort of outlier there. The rest of those teams all kind of right around even, or, 1 or 2 goals on either side of the ledger. So, we're not used to that from where the Canucks were a year ago, but that was last year. This is a new season, obviously, with a bunch of new challenges. They're holding their own at 11-7-3, but just keep an eye on the goal differential because it's a push right now between goals for and against for this Vancouver Canuck Hockey Club. Now, when we look around the Pacific Division, not just the standings, but games involving Pacific Division teams, Canucks get a little bit of help in the fact that Calgary scored late to tie Detroit, but Detroit wins in overtime. So the Flames only getting a single point out of their game in Motown tonight, and some of the other games still in action as we do this live stream tonight. So we'll have to wait for final scores there to get a complete look at the Pacific Division at the end of play on this night.
Vinny Desharnais, I believe he's available.
Yes.
So what is that? Is that a route you go down? I know that Forbert isn't. Someone asked in one of our social channels update on Forbert Desharnais. Desharnais is available. Forbert, obviously, I think is still a while away.
Yeah, which is so unfortunate for him. Just when you think of the personal leave for the passing of his dad, and then he comes back, plays a game, and then gets hurt at practice. And hasn't been seen since. And not that Derek Forbert is the savior by any stretch, but again, here we are 21 games in, and the Canucks are still trying to figure out like who are their best 6 defensemen and in what deployment. And I think that they would like to take a look at Derek Forbert. And penalty killing hasn't been a huge issue for the Canucks, but that's an area I think that he can help them. But yes, this was not a great game for Noah Juulsen, and he's had a little run here. Well, Desharnais has been out, got hurt in that Islanders game, and that's the last that we saw him in game action. So what's he missed? I think 6 straight now for Vinny Desharnais. I would think that it would make some sense just to inject a fresh body there. If he plays with Brandstrom, those two, seem to be finding a little bit of a groove. I don't know if it's as simple as saying, if Desharnais gets in, he's playing with Brandstrom, because right now it's Brandstrom and Myers.
Yeah.
And so there are some decisions to be made here. And again, yes, the road win streak was terrific. The win in Ottawa was great. The goaltending in Boston, through it all, none of that changes the fact that the Vancouver Canucks need to upgrade their back end, right? Like, individual results here on a nightly basis, that doesn't change the big picture. If this team is going to make strides and be truly competitive in the Western Conference, they've just got to get better. And management knows that, and I'm sure the coaching staff knows it. So, I do get this feeling that management wants to see Thatcher Demko back in the lineup, and, how quickly can he get up to speed and what kind of difference can he make there? We're going to continue to watch whether it happens on the road trip. They're halfway through this trip now. So they are 3 games in. There's 3 to go. Don't think that he's playing either of these early starts. I certainly don't think he's playing on Friday. Sunday, I guess, could come out of left field, but I just don't. My sense is that Thatcher Demko will not be in goal for the Canucks on Sunday in Detroit.
Yeah, and I also think this is kind of, I equate it to the Austin Matthews situation a little bit, where it's up to Matthews whether he wants to get in or not. Like I think he's okay. It's up to him getting to that point. I think also for Demko, it's going to be up to him now. Like, I think we're at the point now where he's practicing, he's with the team. He's been skating on his own. He's going through the paces. He's putting his body through things. And now it's up to the point where, is he going to get there? I mean, Patrick Alvin said we're getting closer to a game time decision. So that's got to mean that he's almost ready to go. But I agree with you. Like, goalies are a different breed as well, right? You like your routine. Are you really going to put Thatcher Demko into a game where you're not going to have a morning skate and it's an afternoon game in Buffalo and then an even earlier game in Detroit? And then, like you said, to finish the road trip, team's probably going to be a little bit tired against one of the better teams in the National Hockey League in the Minnesota Wild on the road. Like, I'm not entirely sure. I agree with that, Friday game at home against the Columbus Blue Jackets where you control everything, but maybe the Canucks, maybe Demko is going to be ready. And maybe he looks at this and says, you know what, my plan was for one of these day games, and it is, but I don't think that that's going to happen.
Well, they do move on to Buffalo, where they were 1-0 winners last year on a Sam Lafferty goal in the snow. Remember all the travel troubles getting out of Buffalo and getting to Columbus, had to bus to Toronto. Hopefully the weather a little bit better for them. They're earlier this time around, but I was going to say travel in U.S. Thanksgiving, but they travel charter, so they don't have to worry too much about slogging through big airports. But we'll see what happens as they move on from Pittsburgh into Buffalo for a noon start on Friday. And we'll be back after that one with Rink Wide, as we always do. And then Sunday morning, we'll set the alarm and be ready to go after the Canucks and the Detroit Red Wings. Now, Irf, you dropped a new show today down to Irf with Jeff Merrick. Merrick himself's got a show coming out starting on Monday, and it's called The Sheet. You may have heard about it, but we want to remind you that beginning on Monday, Jeff Merrick goes live on the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel every weekday, noon Pacific. The Sheet's got you covered. Jeff's going to dive into the biggest storylines shaping hockey today, news, rumors, emerging trends, insights from every corner of the rink. He's going to have great guests and interviews, hockey people, journalists, Olympic champs, you name it. The Sheet's your destination for in-depth conversations with people shaping the game. So check out The Sheet starting on Monday, December 2nd, noon Pacific, the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. And you can follow The Sheet Hockey on all your favorite social media platforms so you don't miss a second. I watched this afternoon as I was doing a little prep, and enjoyed your chat. Jeff's just one of the great talkers in this business, and great storyteller. You can throw just about anything at him. You did, and so conversation went in a lot of different great in different ways. Would highly recommend checking out Down to Earth if you haven't already. And then, of course, Jeff gets going with his own show on Monday. Now, into Buffalo, Sabres to me are a wild card. Like, you don't know what you're going to get from the Buffalo Sabres from game to game. And I say that on a night when the Sabres lose 1-0 at home to Minnesota. They had 39 shots and couldn't score. So give Philip Gustafsson some credit. Kirill Kaprizov, the only goal of the hockey game.
It was a nice goal, too.
Sabres are 11-10-1. So very much a middle-of-the-road team. We've said throughout that, this road trip presents opportunities for the Canucks. If they play like they did for the first 35 minutes tonight, they'll probably get run out of the rink. But if they play like they did over the final 25 minutes, then I think they stand a chance against a team like Buffalo. Alex Tuch leads the Sabres. He's got 21 points. Rasmus Dahlin having a nice season. He's got 19 points. Tage Thompson leads the Sabres. He's got 11 goals. Other than that, though, pretty much a mixed bag. I mentioned Sam Lafferty. He's now on the Sabres. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen has 8 of the team's 11 victories. So, they've gone to James Reimer as a third-string option now. They just swept a California road trip. This was their first game back home, and they fall 1-0. And remember, the Sabres started their season in Prague and got off to a 1-4-1 start through 6 games. So, tough start. They've chipped away. They're 10-6 in their last 16, so they've been better the last month or so. But again, to me, that feels like a game that's there for the Vancouver Canucks, but they're going to have to dig in. If they can get Kevin Lankin in goaltending, then, hey, I like their chances. But this is 2 games now, the Boston game and this one against Pittsburgh, where just the process territorially haven't liked a lot of what I've seen from the Vancouver Canucks. So they're going to have to dig down and be better. And just one last thought here. When I mentioned the Buffalo Sabres, because the Botchford Project, this year's Botchford Project, takes place on January 21st when the Sabres are here in Vancouver. Now, the deadline to get your applications in to be a part of the Botchford Project is Friday at noon. So there is still some time. If you are an aspiring journalist, this is an incredible opportunity. It's near and dear to my heart, this legacy project, to keep Jason's memory alive in this market. And it's been an absolute labor of love to be a part of this through the first 5 years. This is year number 6. So if you're considering it and you're waffling, time is ticking down, throw your hat in the ring. I urge you. You've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. The deadline coming up on Friday. You can find more information at the Canucks website. All right. Back-to-back, I would assume that Thursday is a day off for a little football watching for the Vancouver Canucks and just clear their
team
minds.
turkey dinner.
Yeah, somewhere along the line, you'd think so. And then they just got to be better. I mean, the skaters, and again, it's going to be Lankinen on Friday. He's got to be at that level that he was in Boston, but the guys in front of him, particularly the defense, again, they just need to find a way to tidy things up, and can't be giving away free goals at this level. And it just was too easy for the Pittsburgh Penguins tonight.
This league is too good to give up that many goals and be able to, I don't care how good you are and how many goals you can score and how many times you came back against teams and forced overtime. This game is way too good if you give up as many goals as the Canucks did tonight.
Yeah, so we shall see. 3 games down, 3 to go on this road trip, starting in Detroit, or starting in Buffalo on Friday, noon Pacific time, and then 9:30 on Sunday in Detroit, and then wraps up in Minnesota next Tuesday, the Canucks and the Wild. And, really, when you look at the Canucks schedule, it's been a pretty soft schedule in terms of the quality of opponents. In fact, I was looking at this earlier today. One of the reasons the Canucks are 8-2 on the road, based on today's standings, now they may change with the results, but the standing at the start of this day, the Canucks had yet to visit any of the top 10 teams in the National Hockey League.
Yeah.
So, again, you play the teams that are in front of you on the schedule on a given night. I get that part of it. But just remember that there are good teams out there, and the Canucks are going to have to roll through their buildings. And nothing changes with Buffalo or Detroit, but Minnesota, definitely a top 10 team with the start that they're off to their win tonight. So that's at the end of the road trip. And then, yes, they will face other good teams as this season unfolds. At the end of the year, you play 82, 41 at home, 41 on the road, and you get your fill of the good teams. But the Canucks have done a nice job of taking advantage of some struggling teams, but they couldn't do it tonight against a Pittsburgh team that really had been at a loss to try to find offense, but they found it in bunches, got 5 on Artur Silovs, and they win it by a score of 5-4. Don't forget to check out Canucks Army for all the latest on this game and on this team. Quadrelli will have his instant reaction column up if it's not already there, and then all of the usual features and everything you need to know. If anything happens around this hockey club, you can find stories at Canucks Army, Canucks Convo each afternoon, and Matt and Blake with Harrison Price with their live segment starting at noon daily, Monday to Friday. And I know with the early start on Friday, Harrison Price, I think they're getting going a little earlier. I think they're starting at 11 on Friday, basically a pregame show, and then we'll roll in and do what we do, and that is full pre or post-game coverage of the Vancouver Canucks as they take on the Buffalo Sabres on Friday. All right, that's going to do it for us here. Unfortunately for the Canucks, the win streak, a thing of the past. You're going to have to start a new road win streak on Friday. They came that close to joining the 2011 team in the record books, but 8 certainly an accomplishment for the Vancouver Canucks, but they could not get that 9th one. They were definitely the second best team on the ice in this hockey game. For Karin, working hard behind the scenes, Irf, nice job as always. Early start on Friday. We'll see you here.
See you here.
All right. And to all of you watching and listening to Rink Wide, appreciate to all your support. If you don't already, we recommend you follow us on our social channels and certainly subscribe to the YouTube channel, rate and review, give us a 5-star review, give us some comments and some feedback. We love to hear from you, and hey, we take it to heart. We read the comments and we'll tweak. We'll try to do whatever we can to give you the type of coverage that you're looking for as a Vancouver Canuck fan. Pittsburgh 5, Vancouver Canucks 4. That's the final score, and that's going to do it for this episode of Rink Wide Vancouver.